Hello everybody and welcome to IELTS Learning Tips. My name's Bernie Wall and I'm an IELTS teacher and trainer. And I specialise in firstly students who require bands 7 and 8 in their exam, and also students who have taken the exam a few times, sometimes many times, and they are not getting the scores that they want. So I work especially with those students and help them to get to the scores that they want and on to whatever their future is. So in this video today, I want to talk about the difference between IELTS testing, such as using these Cambridge books, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and IELTS training, which is looking at smaller aspects of your IELTS and your English language in order to make sure that your score continually improves. And I see this a little bit like a sports person. So let's imagine you're a marathon runner and you want to be the winner of the marathon. Now, people who run marathons at a competitive level do not run a marathon every day. That is the ultimate thing. So the work that they do day in, day out is actually building up towards that marathon. So they might be looking at maybe their breathing, or they might be looking at how they can maintain their pace, or how they get started, or how they manage their stamina. And all these small things are really important in the whole process of running a marathon. And it's a little bit the same if you're doing an IELTS test. So doing a test every day just keeps you at a certain level, and it doesn't look at the things which make up your ability to do well in that test. And this is why a lot of students take a long time to get to the scores that they want. It's also why a lot of students take the exam and they don't get the scores that they want, because they're not looking broadly enough at the skills they need to achieve the level that they want. So it's not about test, test, test. It's about building skill. And once your skills are at a good level, then the test is inevitable. Getting your score in the test is absolutely inevitable. So I want to share my screen with you because, as usual, I've done a few pointers on the screen which hopefully will help you to understand how this works. Okay, so it's about building all-round English skills. And remember, and I think often students forget this, IELTS is a test of English language ability and English language skill. That's what it is. So the better your English, the easier the exam. So let's see why people take tests every day, because to an extent, this seems to me to be quite a bizarre thing to do. It is quite boring, and I meet lots and lots of students who are bored to death with IELTS. They just can't wait for it to go away and finish. And that's a pity, because actually a lot of IELTS is quite interesting. You can learn things, you can find out stuff, and so it's a pity that it becomes boring. But it becomes boring purely because you're repeating the same thing every day. Doing them again and again and again. Okay, I do the IELTS Cambridge books with students I work with a lot. And I have to say, I do not remember everything, but I do sometimes remember some things. And I know some students have told me that when they do it, they can remember some of the answers. Particularly, I would say people who have a job where there's a lot of memory learning, like doctors and lawyers. If you have a very good memory, then it's quite possible you will remember the answers to the questions. So therefore, you're not even testing yourself. And there are only 15, I think soon to be 16 books. And to be honest, some of the earlier ones are now quite distant from how the test runs, although they are still worthwhile and they are still worth doing. So a lot of students run out, and I see every day, I've done all the Cambridge books. I've done all the Cambridge books. What does that mean? If you've got 100%, if you've got 40 out of 40 on every reading, every listening, then yeah, probably you don't need to do them again. But then why have you not taken the test? But if you're only getting 25 or 30, then there is merit in taking them again to see if you can get your score up. But at some stage, you'll run out of material. So then what do you do? It can also stop your English from developing generally. And I see this all the time. A lot of students spend a lot of time on reading and listening, and then they're not spending enough time on writing and speaking. So it's a very static way to practice. It doesn't improve your vocabulary. It doesn't extend your grammar. It just means that you're taking the test every day. And who would want to do that, frankly? Okay. And you'll become an expert at a particular level. So I meet lots and lots and lots of band 6.5 experts. I also meet lots of band 7 experts. But those people who need 7 in everything, or 7.5 or band 8, something different needs to happen to get away from that band 7 expert and into a much better language user. Okay. I've been an English language teacher for, well, I can tell you, since 1977. I taught my very first class in a university in Indonesia in 1977, in October it was actually. And so I know a lot about teaching English language. And I have taught not just IELTS, but I've taught all the other Cambridge exams as well. The first certificate, the proficiency, the advanced. I've taught TOEFL. I've taught all the English language exams. And we would always do the exam practice at the end, the final stage. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the actual exam, we would get out these practice books. We would not look at them before that. All of the time before that was building up to the practice. So this should be your final check before you take the exam, not the beginning of your preparation. So it's for checking that you're on track to do it. It helps to boost your confidence, because if you've done, say, 6 months of practice and then you get to just before your exam, and you get a good score in the practice book, then you should have a lot of confidence going into the exam. They don't really develop your skills. They just test what you already know. They give you some last-minute practice, and they don't prepare you for everything. Sometimes surprises come. For example, a student I was working with took the exam about a month ago, and when she got to the listening, she'd been practicing questions where you inserted a word, one word, into a sentence, and when she got to the actual exam, it was multiple choice. So she was quite surprised. Now, we'd done some multiple choice question practice, so it was fine, but she was quite surprised because it wasn't what she expected. And one of the problems of just doing the exam practice is that you're not prepared for every eventuality, and your ability may not be all round. Your practice should be broader. You must include more vocabulary. You can learn this from the exams, but there are other things you should be doing with your vocabulary. So you need to know synonyms. You need more flexibility. Can you change a verb to a noun, or a noun to an adjective, or an adverb, for example? Are you looking at word families? So, for example, do you know all the words connected with animals? And for those words, can you use the verbs and the nouns and the adjectives again? So there are lots of different things you can do with vocabulary. Do you know which words can be used in which situations? You'll learn this by watching how people write, how people speak, how people interact. You can learn that, but you can't necessarily learn it from the tests. Do you understand about register? Do you understand about formal and informal? Do you use words which are archaic? And I've seen lots of archaic words. That means words which are no longer used commonly. And they just sound silly, frankly. Do you know words which are used in literature, but not used in academic writing? This is all the stuff you need to know if you're looking for Band 8. You need a good knowledge of grammar. What to use when in both speaking and writing. You need more advanced structures. Are you able to use different types of clauses like non-defining relative clauses? Or can you use conditionals? Or can you use modal verbs? And do you know when to use them? Are you able to eliminate errors? Can you spot mistakes? And can you build skill with grammar? And do you know what to say when? Do you know if your language is appropriate to the situation? Are you using something very informal when it should be formal? It's the same with the letters in the general training exam. Do you know what to write and how to write it so that you present your best English to the examiner? All of these things are important. And if you can do them all, then you probably only need to take 1 or 2 practice tests, to be honest. Okay, in listening, are you familiar with vocabulary, different vocabulary? What about different accents? What about one person speaking, 2 people speaking, 3 people speaking? What about informal versus formal language? Can you manage all of that? Can you discriminate well? So are you able to pick out a single word? Do you know if there's an S on the word? Is it plural, for example? Or is there an ED on the word? Is it past tense? This is all discrimination in listening, and you need to be able to do it. It is tested as part of the listening. Have you got good stamina in listening, or do you get tired? Do you lose concentration? Do you miss questions? This is something you need to build. And dealing with the questions. Can you deal with the multiple choice questions? Do you know what to listen out for? And in the reading, what about your vocabulary? What about your comprehension? What about your speed? Can you speed up and still get the same score? Do you understand text? Do you know how they work? Do you know what an introduction does? Because if you look at your reading, it's exactly the same type of format you need for your writing. How does your introduction interact with the first paragraph? How does the second paragraph interact with the first paragraph? How does your conclusion interact with your second paragraph and your introduction? How do they fit together? That's all important. And use your knowledge of grammar. Sometimes the grammar of a sentence can help you with the understanding and finding the right answer. Also, the grammar of the question can dictate which word you must pick from the text. All of these things you will get not from just doing test practice, but from building your skills. Okay, so in writing, you need to improve vocabulary and grammar. You need to understand what cohesion means and develop it. You need to be able to plan and check. You need to get the right style and the right tone. This is particularly important if you're doing a letter. In speaking, you need to get enough practice. That's the key thing, is to get enough practice. You also need the ability to use formal and informal language in the different parts of the test. So for example, part 2 is a little talk. It's not a kind of chat. The first part is possibly a little less formal. The final part is a little more formal. So you need to be able to move between registers. You need to be fluent, and you need to have good pronunciation. And yeah, you need the right sort of language for the kind of questions that you're being asked. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. Let me stop sharing and come back. So I hope that's useful and gives you an idea about the breadth that you need for making sure you're well prepared for the exam. So don't just stick with the test, consider all those other things as well, especially if you're looking for band 7s and band 8s. It is absolutely key. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everybody.